Hey RATBAGGERS, it's Jade with the lowdown and recap of everything you need to know about the updates that went live on console and PC today. PC got a small quality of life and minor patch, reworking some things and adding some new tone books to use for your Warlock class, a rework of Runesong, some huge quality of life improvements like crafting from within 10 tiles. And that's what the bulk of this update is today, showing you guys everything you need to know, including some changes to some of the boss arenas. But a quick word on the Xbox and PlayStation Switch updates. I'll leave the link to the full patch notes down below, but basically you've got more stability now and a lot of bug fixes have been coupled together. 1.0014 and 1.0016, they were the last two updates for PC, they're now live on console. So do check, your update does say 1.0016. You can check that in the main menu or the pause menu. If it doesn't, you may need to try restarting your game again. I have had some reports that players can't connect with each other because they're on different versions, but I'm pretty sure the devs would know about that if it's a serious issue affecting more. I'm sure it will be resolved. So basically all the changes that you're going to see today for the rest of this video, they won't be hitting console until at some point in November. But of course, the minute they arrive, I'll let you guys know. The pick of the bunch though with the bug fixes are things like Ivy set bonuses now being applied correctly in range attack, beam weapons now accurately damaging moving enemies, as well as your minions actually doing damage to some of the bosses in the end game. So that's that, let's move on to everything new for PC today. So indeed there are 3 brand new minion tomes. One based on fire that you'll now pick up hopefully by defeating Malagus, or maybe lucky enough from Iron Chess. These very cute little fire goblins will run around and basically hurl themselves at an enemy. Pestilence, which you can get from Asios, which basically summons a special plant turret. Also got a chance of picking them up from Scarlet Chess. And a toxic radiation tome that gives you pretty much decay damage that you can harvest from Hydras or finding in Solarite chests. So these are pretty cool. The Tome of Ashes is a level 6 item and yeah, it's going to do 56 to 68 melee damage and costs 40 mana to summon. Pestilence level 8, it costs mana of 45 to use, 49 to 59 range damage, but the plant will basically stay in place as it shoots. And then the Tome of Decay, which is obviously the radiation damage one, 65 mana cost to use, but it does do 46 to 56 melee damage. You do also get additional 57 radiation damage with it, as well as the melee, so it can be really powerful if you hit enemies at the same time. However, at the moment, testing it with obviously the Core Commander armor set, which also does radiation damage, it doesn't stack. Doesn't appear to be speeding up the tick or the damage rates either. The 67 orange number is the flat bonus attack damage that you get from the Core Keeper armor. So just bear that in mind, you can't suddenly go OP with radiation damage. You can now change the size of the areas with shovels, water cans, hose and the roofing gadget. This might be my favourite second quality of life improvement they've added. You can see here it works with the hose by pressing the A button on the control pad. Not too sure what it is on keyboard, I ain't gonna lie. Guessing scroll wheel or control left or control right, you can then change the size of some of your tools. So when it comes to the hose, the largest that you can have is still 5x5. Obviously if you're using anything Scarlet and above, you can then still modify it now to be a bit smaller and make more delicate placements when you're going and tilling the earth. The tin version here only goes up to 3x3 squares and pretty much works the same for the shovels, which can now dig up multiple areas, which is a great move. You might need obviously a space shovel like this, the Galaxite one, and the biggest you can actually gather up is 3x3. And lower level shovels like the copper shovel can still only do 1x1, otherwise more commonly known as just 1 square. So a great move, but still no way to plant more than 1 seed at a time. And the same applies to your watering cans. You'll now be able to get a bigger radius by making sure you get the best and upgraded ones. Also applies to the ceiling puncher as well, so even more now light you can let in certain places. Absolutely my favourite change is indeed being able to craft now from any 10 tile radius. So you can see I'm putting in some items and resources that you hopefully be able to craft something, and then running over to the hologram pod and you can see I can go ahead and craft any of the scanners. So great stuff, really means that people can redesign their storage rooms a lot, especially their crafting. Still would be nice to have a button that just dumps everything out of my inventory in the appropriate boxes in one go. Removable doors, basically the petal doors and stuff like that, can now be destroyed, but sadly not picked up. It would be great if we had more than just the single doorways, maybe double doors or much larger ones to utilise in future. So when you've crafted them, you can have the option on your signs that show it always or show it only when you approach, or obviously have it turned off. So this is definitely going to be good for sorting out stuff a little bit better, especially for any friends or noobs that join your world. And again, I'm going to keep offering these suggestions, but it would be nice if we could just label chests directly too. They finally also added some terrariums and aquariums for all your lovely critters and your fish. You'll craft them at your glass workbench, and you'll need certain resources as well, like decorative items from different biomes, to go ahead and make some of them. There's a whole ton of them, and yeah, you can put all sorts of different little critters and fish inside. They kind of just bob up and down inside, so no real animations just yet, but I still think this is pretty cool. If you're really not into decorating massively your base with all the shrubbery and other stuff that you find, then maybe this is going to be a little bit more manageable. And rejoice, for your builders out there, you've now got proper coral and galaxite doorways that you can now craft. And just before you place them, you can now go ahead and rotate your mannequins. Most of the workbenches can now be salvageable at the salvage station, although not any of the anvils currently. And just like with gear, you'll get roughly about half or just under sometimes the resources that you use to craft them. And now if you're using the distillery bench as well as the upgraded accessories bench, you can now just toggle just like you can with the rest of the workbenches to basically go and use some of the previous stuff and craft them. So like the potions in distillery, and pretty much you get the idea. So really good move here as well. Again, less clutter now with less crafting benches needed everywhere. Wooden doors, wooden fences and wooden gateways can also all now be painted, so adding even more colour and variety to your decorations. And you can even go ahead and paint arms now in different colours too. So moving on to combat a little bit and bosses. Regular normal slimes, they never hit you, do they? Only the spiky boys. Well, that's now been extended to the slippery and the poison varieties. Boss damage is now listed properly in the stats, so you can check exactly how much you're doing and how much reduction you get. And there's a brand new chest now for defeating Malagus. It's got its own more unique style, as I think it was pretty much just an ancient chest before, or just looking very similar. Now it's got these light teeth or spikes coming through, a bit more brown as well, so kind of cool. Now something I got a bit excited about, but maybe a bit underwhelming, although it's still a cool feature, is they have added a few more new dungeons, or basically ruins around some of the boss fights. So in the Asius Wilderness, around Asius, you will find these small little rooms with a lot more snipers and some of the snares and about. It's not like a dungeon like it is with Malagus and you've got to go through it all to get to the boss. You can still actually avoid a lot of these if you've just been lucky and gone through the right route. But does add just a little bit more around the boss arenas, I guess, to make them stand out a little bit more. And apparently some of the visuals with Asios have been adjusted or changed slightly as well. But honestly, I couldn't really tell you the difference. For Rahakar, there are definitely more of these mummified little areas, so you'll have to deal with them a little bit more now. Which is kind of cool, because I haven't actually run into too many of them on my regular world so far, though there wasn't much loot in these places. And perhaps coolest of all though was Omrath, where it's added a little bit more labyrinthium sort of waterways and definitely a lot more of these tentacles too. Felt ever so slightly a little bit more maze-like. So when you start coming across this, if you've not used the scanner to find them, then hopefully it means that you're going to get pretty close. But perhaps best of all, depending on what you're into, is that Runesong has been now adjusted and majorly buffed. It does seem to be a habit with certain items in Core Keeper that they're really hard to get hold of, but they're not always that amazing. Well, Runesong has now been buffed. You'll heal on hit from 3 to 10, a 5% chance to gain a short 50% attack speed bonus. And it's got a new secondary attack that leaves a trail that does damage with a 25% chance to stun. So it definitely has a real more look about it, and certainly sounds great as well, as you can hear the hum of it whenever you use the special attack. Probably obviously better against a line of enemies coming towards you though. And obviously they've removed the HP increase and chance to one-shot weak enemies. Some other notable changes: fishing bait recipes have now been updated to include critters, so to go ahead and craft 10 bait you might need something like a worm or one of the black scarab or black bugs. Adjusted the spawn rate of Cavelin toilets in the Forgotten Ruins. They've slightly adjusted damage caused by orbit turrets in the Shimmering Frontier tweak the amount of roots that naturally spawn in the world, and tweak the amount of sledgehammers that would spawn in the metropolis area. They also adjusted the price of scanners and summoning items, and if you're sick of getting surprised by worm enemies, they should leave their walls a little bit slower now. There's more of a visual cue now for when minions are about to despawn, and they've also updated the minion count icon. Buckets will also now glow when carrying lava, seawater or crystal water. A few other things to note: wood bridges can now be crafted in hand instead of at the basic workbench. A message will now display and communicate when enemy difficulty is scaled after a new player joins session. The bottom wood root that gets attached to core when grown was moved one tile. It's now possible to plant it once again after it's broken. The cursor now stays centered at the same world position when zooming in or out of the game. A simplified aim cursor now places the arrow when aiming with ranged weapons. They've added square and cross-shaped patterns for naturally spawning explosive walls. A minimap now shows nearby markers. Creative UI is now enabled by default in creative mode. Added visual and sound effects when using permanent maximum health items for the first time to provide clear feedback when they're used. Also increased the randomness of unique dungeon placement for different world seeds. For example, the Glurch Arena should no longer always appear southwest of the core. The map biome title now updates quicker when moving between biomes that have already been encountered, and a bunch of text and translation issues have been fixed, as well as obviously lots of performance stuff and a bunch of bug fixes, including this. Large harvest not being applied properly, grey lines weirdly placed on top of Easter egg lamps, issue where workbenches were showing the wrong rotation sprites, some painted wood stall sprites were slightly misaligned, aggro range from slime bosses was a bit too small. Hint sign when writing on signs is now correctly disabled when the sign contains any text. Issues where minions will disappear before playing despawn animations. Directly interacting with placed levers of circuits should now properly update the state of these items on the server. Issues with colliders not getting enabled correctly around enemies after nearby spawns. Cases where dungeons would spawn too close together and partially overwrite each other. Pedestal fixed in the temple scene in the wilderness that they generated with the correct amount of items. The crystal biome is now affected by the ore density world setting. They fixed the pushback on parry not working. Chests that can float on water, floating Titan's chest, Cryo chest and Atlantean worm chest are no longer misplaced for one frame when placed, and boss summoning items are no longer lost if they are broken the moment before the boss spawns. Minions should also no longer be despawned as a result of other players spawning new minions. It's really good stuff for a minor update that adds an absolute ton of quality of life improvements and reworks some of the stuff that players have maybe been finding frustrating. Very excited about what's going to come next. They are already working on update 1.1, and as said, as soon as this comes live for console and any other minor changes that might have hit by that time, I'll keep you guys in the loop. Hopefully these minion changes or a bit more progression with some of the books will help make it a bit more appealing, and definitely with some of the changes in the previous update that gave a bit more to them as well. It's definitely a step in the right direction. Also, forget to say, I do appreciate the reduction in some of the items you need to go ahead and use the scanners. The changes to the boss arenas you won't notice on an old world, you can only go and check them out on a new one. So you're really not missing much if you are just pretty much past that point already, but more for a new experience for newer players, or if you're starting up a new world. As I said, go and watch the full stream. I thought it was pretty entertaining, covering every aspect of the patch there for about 3 hours nearly. Otherwise, until next time, Ratbags, I'll catch you for more Core Keeper stuff, including my 100 days video, which I'm really trying to edit and get done very soon. Until then, bye-bye.